So the first thing you'll do is connect your controller via USB. You should hear some sort of a beeping sound, and it'll come up and it'll give you like a COM port. Go ahead and hit connect. You should see your drone, and it should be connected correctly. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to upgrade the firmware. So what you want to do is you want to come over here in the lower left and click on CLI, and we'll be able to come in here and just type in BL for bootloader and hit enter. And you should hear it do a couple of beeps, and then up here on the right you'll notice now it says DFU. So another way to do that is if you were to push the bootloader button on your controller and then power it up, that'll also go into bootloader mode. It's a little bit easier to do it via software like this though, obviously. So once you're all set up, come over here to the left and click on firmware flasher. I'm using the iFlight Success controller. On the instructions it said to use this as the target. If you click here, you can see all the different targets that there are, and you can scroll through and you can pick out the one that's that's recommended for your type of controller. And then also right below that you can see the different versions. And so what mine came with is version 2, just 4.2, and I wanted to upgrade to version 4.2 4.2.6, so I just selected that. And then what you do is you come down here to the lower right and you'll click on load firmware online, and when it's done it'll say loaded online firmware, and then all you do is you just click flash firmware, and it'll go through its process, and it's doing its erasing right now. It takes a couple minutes to do this, so now it's going through and flashing. I'll go ahead and speed through this. Okay, so you should hear some sort of a beeping tone. It should come up in, with a nice big green bar that says programming successful. You'll notice that we have our COM port 8 up here again. So we're going to click connect, and it comes up and says, hey, there's some custom defaults available. Do you want to use them? We're going to go ahead and click apply the custom defaults and hit connect again. It says there's an issue with the accelerometer, and no problem. We're just going to go ahead and close this out. And then up here in the top left, you'll see where it says calibrate accelerometer. Just go ahead and hit that. And you should see this move around a little bit. And we are set. So the first thing I like to do is check to make sure my orientation is correct. So if I move this forward, I should see it move forward, but it doesn't move forward. It moves to the left. If I move it to the left, it moves back. So that tells me my orientation is off 90 degrees. So what I'm going to do is come over here to configuration, and right here where it says yaw degrees, I'm going to change that to 90 and hit save and reboot and connect again. And then in theory I should be able to move it forward, and it moves forward and left and right and back. So now I know my orientation is correct. So we're going to go through each one of these and we're going to set them up. So the next tab is ports. So it normally comes up with a UART2. This is selected with serial RX. This is for the S-Bus port. And then for the DJI unit to talk to the controller, you need to set the configuration MSP to 115/200. So this is what works great. So it's automatically set to UART1. So go ahead and hit save and reboot and hit connect. Great. So now we are going to go into, and we should see our ports now. Yeah, UART1 and UART2 is selected. We come into configuration, and we're going to select DShot 300, motor stop, and bidirectional DShot. So this requires the latest version of BLheli. So we'll go through that real quick as soon as we're done with this to make sure we have the latest version. If you can't select it, don't worry about it. We'll come back and do it after we upgrade the BLheli. Now, these motors have 14 poles. Sometimes if you have a smaller motor like a 1407 or something like that, you may find they only have 12 poles. You can find this out on the website. It'll tell you, you may have instructions or something that comes with the motors that'll tell you how many poles it has. So just make sure you have the correct amount. And so now I'm going to set this to 4 kilohertz. Now I could run, I believe these ESC supports D-Shot 600. I'm going to experiment and try some different things, but for right now, with pretty much everything that you'll be using, go ahead and select D-Shot 300 in 4 kilohertz, and that should be fine. Over here to the left, since I wired my motors up to spin outwards, not inwards, I have to select where it says motor direction reversed. So go ahead and click that and make sure it sets motor direction reversed. If you go to take off and it doesn't take off, this is one of the first things that I look for. So scrolling down, make sure that you have it set to serial based receiver and S-bus. I don't need air mode. We're going to set air mode up onto a switch, so we don't have to worry about that. We do have an LED strip. We do have OSD, so we want to make sure that's all on there. We will be using the dynamic filter. Coming down here for the beeper, I usually will turn it off for USB so it's not beeping while I'm working on it. So once that's all done, go ahead and hit save and reboot. And hit connect again. Great. So it almost looks like I need to calibrate the accelerometer. See it move a little bit. So now it's totally level. Okay, so you're going to come over here and click on the PID tuning, and what we're going to do is select the PID profile settings, and we're going to change the stock settings to something that'll work a little bit better with this drone. So change the first one to 70, and the pitch, we're going to change that to 90, and we're going to go to 100. The eye we're going to set to 65, 60, and 115. D max is going to be 39. 43. Leave this 0. Coming over here, we're going to change this one to 20, 22, and feed forward. We're going to up this to 200. Actually, let's just do 195, 195, and 195. So that's looking good. We don't have to mess with anything down here. Our feed forward transition is going to be 1. We're going to leave this at 20 and 5. That's not going to change. Change this, your iTerm relax to RPY, and set this to 20. And then the minimum, we're going to make this 27. And the advance is going to be 20. Change this to 5. So this is good for this. Go ahead and hit save. Great. Now we're going to go to the rate profile, and so I actually run 2 different profiles. I run one profile for cinema, and then I run another profile for freestyle. So we're going to set up the cinema profile first, and so to do that, we want it to be real slow. We don't want it to be very maneuverable. We want it to be this is great for flying indoors or where you want super smooth feeling drone. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to set this to 0.75, 0.75, and 0.75. And then we're going to make this 0.75 also. and this is where we add our expo. So this makes it real smooth when the right around the center sticks, and you can adjust this until it feels right. This isn't set in stone, and you may find that you want it a little bit different. For example, you may want a little bit less yaw, so like 65 might be a little bit better for yaw, so it's a little bit smoother, makes it easier to do nice smooth yaw turns. Now, with the motors that I'm running, depending on what you're using, if you're using a 4-cell, you may not need to add any throttle expo. If you're using a 6-cell, depending on what motors you're using, you may not have to add any expo. In some motors, like on the 1407, 1408s, I find that throttle, like a 50% throttle expo, can really help smooth it out. It just depends on what kind of motors you're running. So once you have rate profile 1 set up, go ahead and hit save. And so just remember that the rate profile 1 is for cinema, and then you can come up here and select rate profile 2. And so I'm going to set this up for freestyle. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and make this 0.8, 0.8, and 0.8. And this will be 8.3. 8.3, and we're going to leave this at 70. There is no expo for this for doing freestyle, so go ahead and hit save. And so this is pretty quick turning. When you try this out, it'll spin pretty fast. It'll do 941 degrees a second, so that's a pretty fast spin for doing freestyle. So you might enjoy it. If it's a little bit too fast, you can always set it and lower this a little bit, and it'll be easier to fly. So once we have our rate profile settings, the next one that we're going to move over to is the filter settings. So click on that tab. And so our filters, we're going to be setting the first one to 300, the next to 750. Coming down here, we're going to set this to 375. And you may need to scroll down a little bit. We're going to set the gyro filter to 1, and this will stay at 100. We're going to half this to 4. The dynamic Q is going to be 200. The minimum is going to be 90, and max is going to be 300. Coming up here to the top, we're going to change this to 105. $255 and $225, and hit save. Great. So we should be good to go on all of our filters. So if you click over here on the receiver tab to the left, you should see once you have the battery hooked up and your controller is on, you should see everything working. So when I move the yaw, control, throttle, everything should be working correctly. You can double check to make sure that your drone is responding correctly. And so if everything looks good, you're going to click over here on the modes tab, and this is where we're going to set the different modes. So click on arm and then hit add range. Now go ahead and flip the switch that you want to be your arm switch. I prefer to have it at the top left, and I have this set up in all my drones. So when I click it, you can see it automatically selected auxiliary 1, so I know that that's the auxiliary 1 switch. Then I'm going to move this slider over. Now, whenever I'm in this, when I have the switch, you can see the slider moving over. And if I hit save, now the switch should be enabled, and it sure is. You can see that it beeps and everything. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to set up so that the angle mode is on in normal mode. So what we're going to do is select add range to angle, and then I like that to be my top right switch, and so I'm going to use that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to set that up so that the switch is always on though. And so I'm going to move these sliders over here to the left, and now whenever I have all the switches in the up position, Its angle mode is normally enabled. And then I'm going to come in here and add horizon, and we're going to make that also on the same switch. That'll be the center area. And so now when you can see right here, when it's in the center, it'll be in horizon mode. When it's all the way upwards, it's in the angle mode. And then when I bring it all the way forward, it'll just be like normal freestyle mode with nothing. So, and then when I hit save, you can hear it blink, and you can see the lights change as we go into the different modes. So it's normally set to use angle mode, and that's just a good way to have it. So like if you're flying indoors or something like that, there's a lot of times where angle mode's kind of nice. If you're in a really tight spot, it can save you. So next what we're going to do is we're going to set our beeper. I like having my lower left button, so we're going to add a range to that, and I'll move the switch down. And so now, in theory, if we hit save, so now our beeper is working. And last, I like having air mode on a switch so I can turn it off when I go to land. So I'll click on add range down here, and I prefer the lower right. And so we'll move our sliders over there. And so now, when I move the lower right switch, it goes into air mode. When I want to land, I just turn it off. So now all of our modes are set up correctly, and we're good to go to the next step. So go ahead and hit save. Make sure everything's working. And we're going to move over here to the Motors tab and click on Motors. Now make sure that you always have your props off when you're doing this. And so I'm not going to go through all the different steps right here. I'll let you do this on your own. But basically what you're going to do is click on this tab right here, and then just move your sliders and double check to make sure all your motors are turning in the right direction. And so the best way is to just put a little piece of paper or a little piece of cardboard on the motors, and you can see which way it's flipping. And then if it's write down which direction it's going. If one of the motors are incorrect, we'll go into BLheli and fix that, and so you don't have to worry about it. So let's go ahead and double check, write down the direction all your motors are spinning, and make sure that they're working correctly. Then let's come over here to the next tab, which is the OSD. So click on that. And so what you want to do is scroll down. So over here in the OSD tab, I don't like having a lot of information. I just like having the fly mode. And so if you click on fly mode, it comes up here in the center, and then you can just move that wherever you want on the screen. I like having it in the lower center. Low voltage is not won't come up on the screen. You won't see that. It's not compatible yet with DJI, and so not all of these different OSD options are available. There's like GPS and satellite speed. There's a lot of things that you can use, but not everything is working. I don't like having a lot of stuff on the screen. It already has the DJI system already puts the battery voltage for my drone and for the controller and for the goggles up on the screen. It also puts my flight time, that sort of thing, and that's all I really care about. So that's already on the screen via the DJI. So once you have this set up and you're happy with everything in the placement, just go ahead and hit save. And so moving down here to the LED strip is the last thing to set up. And so what we're going to do is there's 4 LEDs on this array that I am making. So you click on the wire ordering mode and just select 4. So you can see that as soon as I went and just dragged it, it creates numbers for each one. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the function color, and then I'm going to set them all to yellow, just so that they're yellow right now. And then I'm going to select every other one pink, because I have yellow and pink props. So that's the colors I'm going with. And hit save, and you should see your LEDs come on if your battery is plugged in. If you want, you can select throttle, and then as you give it throttle, the colors will change. That's kind of cool. The Larson scanner makes it scan from left to right. It's kind of more irritating than helpful, I think. You can also have it blink, which again is more irritating, I think, than useful. You You can also have them blink and light up for different warnings and that sort of thing. I don't mess around with it. I just want to be able to find it if I drop it in the bushes or in the grass. And so the lights really help from a long distance, especially if it's dark and it's like inside a bush or under a tree or something like that, or up in a tree. You can see it a lot easier with the LEDs. So once you're all happy with everything, just be sure to hit save. Okay, so now we're going to come in here and to BLheli, and we're going to set and upgrade our ESC. If you don't have the latest version of the ESC, you can't use notch filtering. So this is one of the things that you have to do if you want to use notch filtering. So just like with Betaflight, you'll see it comes up with a COM. So just go ahead and hit connect. And then make sure that all your props are off. We haven't put them on yet. So go ahead and hit read setup. And so the easiest thing is to just flash all of them. So what you want to do is write down what target you have. So up here on the top, you can see that it says G-H-30. So that's what you'll want to go look and find. And so depending on what ESC you have, I'll put some links there to GitHub. Now this will change depending on when this video was made. So there might be some newer versions out since then. But I upgraded to 16.79 to be able to have notch filtering. There might be some newer versions out since then. So what you want to do is come down here and click Flash All. And then what you're going to do is select the file that you have that you selected. So in this case, for example, I had revision 16.79, and I just go through and select that one and then hit open, and then it'll just go through and it'll automatically flash your ESCs, and when it's all done, you should be good to go. If you need to go and change the direction of your motors, right here there's a pull down. So once everything once you have your ESC is all set up and everything, you can go here and you can say I want to have it reversed, or depending on what you want. So for example, you can hook all your motors up straight and then just come in here to BLheli and just reverse the ones that you want. So and that's it makes it for like a clean wiring job. So with this I have 4 and 2 reversed. And then when you're all done and you get the motors set, all you do is you just hit write setup, and then that'll write that into your firmware, and then from now on your motors should be spinning correctly. You do have to go back to Betaflight and double check to make sure by using the motors tab, but you can kind of double check to make sure all your motors are spinning correctly, and then once they're good to go, then you're pretty much ready to put the props on and go out for a test flight. So let's go ahead and do that and move on. Hey, how's it going? Are you guys ready to fly? We have the new Cinewhoop build. We'll be flying sector 150 with a GoPro 8. And so I'll have the settings to set to 4K 4:3, 30 frames a second. And we'll go in and real steady that. I'll be using the full DJI system with goggles and the controller. So let's see what happens, shall we?
Hey, thanks a lot for stopping by the Claws Club today. We hope you had as much fun building your drone as we had building ours. Be sure to like and subscribe and tell your friends all about us. And we hope to see you out on the field soon. Bye-bye.